The first time my best friend asked me to teach him how to kiss a man, I thought he was joking. The second time, he was standing in front of me with a look in his eyes that made me realize he wasn't. And by the third time, I understood something that terrified me. Ryan Bennett wasn't asking because he was curious. He was asking because somehow, without either of us noticing when it happened, he had started wanting me. It was almost midnight when he appeared in my doorway. I was sitting on the edge of my bed with my laptop open, pretending to work while actually staring at the same paragraph for almost 20 minutes. Ryan lived in the apartment next to mine, but he had practically treated my place like his own for years. He came over without knocking. He stole my food. He borrowed my clothes. He fell asleep on my couch after long days. He was the person who had known me longer than almost anyone. And, unfortunately, he was also the person I had secretly loved for nearly 3 years. A love I had never confessed. A love I had buried beneath jokes, movie nights, late-night conversations, and every excuse I could find to stay close without making him suspicious. So when he walked into my room that night, I immediately noticed that something was wrong. Ryan didn't smile. He didn't make a joke. He didn't ask what I was working on. He just stood there. Evan. His voice was quieter than usual. I closed my laptop. What happened? Can I ask you something? I laughed nervously. You're making it sound like you're about to confess to a murder. He didn't laugh. That was when my stomach dropped. Sit down, I said. Ryan came over and sat beside me on the bed. Not across from me. Beside me. Close enough that our shoulders almost touched. For a few seconds, neither of us said anything. Then he rubbed his hands together and stared at the floor. I broke up with Chloe. I already knew. They had ended things 2 days earlier. I'd listened to him complain about it for hours. But something about the way he said it now told me this wasn't about Chloe. I'm sorry. He nodded. She said something before she left. I waited. She said I don't know how to make anyone feel loved. I swallowed. Ryan looked at me. For some reason I can't stop thinking about it. You're not bad at relationships. That's not what she said. He looked away. She said I'm good at dating someone. I'm good at wanting someone. I'm good at being around someone. He paused. But when things become real, I don't know what to do. I didn't know how to answer. Ryan had always seemed confident. He was the kind of man people noticed when he walked into a room. Athletic, charming, comfortable around everyone, especially women. I had watched girls flirt with him for years. I'd watched him smile back. I'd watched him date. And every single time, I'd swallowed the same ugly little piece of jealousy and reminded myself that Ryan was straight. That was just the truth. Or at least, the truth I'd built my entire friendship around. So what do you want me to do about it? I asked. He hesitated. Then he looked directly at me. I want you to teach me. My heart stopped. What? You heard me. Teach you what? He gave a nervous laugh. Everything. I stared at him. He looked almost embarrassed. Not, he rubbed the back of his neck. Not everything. Ryan. I mean affection. Intimacy. How to be close to someone without making it weird. I let out a breath. You're asking me to teach you how to have a relationship? Kind of. Why me? That question came out more quietly than I intended. Ryan's expression softened. Because you're the only person I trust enough to ask. That hurt more than it should have. Because he trusted me. But not in the way I wanted. Not yet. Maybe never. I looked down at my hands. Ryan, I'm probably the worst person to ask. Why? Because I actually care about this stuff. He smiled faintly. That's exactly why. I should have said no. I knew that. I knew there was no universe in which teaching the man I loved about intimacy could end well for me. But then Ryan leaned closer. Not enough to touch. Just enough to make me aware of the distance between us. I don't understand why everything feels easier with you, he whispered. My heart pounded. What do you mean? I mean, he looked at my mouth for half a second. Then quickly back at my eyes. I can talk to girls for hours and feel nothing. My breath caught. But with you. He stopped. With me? He nodded. I don't know. I wanted to ask him what he meant. I wanted to ask him if he had ever looked at me the way I looked at him. Instead, I asked the safest question. What exactly do you want me to teach you? Ryan thought about it. Then he said, start with closeness. So I did. I told him that intimacy wasn't about performing something perfectly. It was about feeling safe, being honest, knowing someone could see the parts of you that you usually hid. Ryan listened, really listened. Then he asked, so what does it feel like? To trust someone? No. He hesitated. To be close. My throat tightened. It feels like you don't need to pretend. He stared at me. And if you don't know how, you learn. How? I smiled nervously. Slowly. Ryan nodded. Okay. He shifted closer. Our shoulders touched. Neither of us moved. I could feel the warmth of his arm against mine. It was nothing. It should have been nothing. But when you've spent years loving someone in silence, even the smallest touch can feel enormous. Ryan looked down at our hands. Is this okay? I nodded. Yeah. He placed his hand beside mine. Our fingers brushed. I expected him to move away. He didn't. Instead, his little finger curled around mine. My breath caught. He noticed. Too much. No. Then don't move. I looked at him. Why? Because I like it. Those 4 words stayed with me. Ryan leaned back against the headboard. A few minutes later, his eyes grew heavy. You tired? Yeah. You can go home. He shook his head. Can I stay here? My heart nearly broke. Sure. He stretched out beside me, still holding my hand. Within minutes, his breathing became slow and steady. He had fallen asleep. I stared at the ceiling, afraid to move. This was Ryan, my best friend. The man I'd spent years trying not to love too openly. And now he was sleeping beside me with his fingers intertwined with mine as if that was the most natural thing in the world. I turned my head. His face was peaceful. For one selfish second, I let myself imagine that this meant something. That maybe he wasn't as straight as I'd always believed. That maybe there was a possibility buried somewhere underneath all his confusion. Then I reminded myself of the truth. Tomorrow morning Ryan would wake up. He would laugh. He would make a joke. And everything would go back to normal. At least that's what I thought. Because the next morning, before I was even fully awake, I felt Ryan's hand tighten around mine. And when I opened my eyes, he was already looking at me. Not like a friend. Not like a roommate. Not even like someone who was confused. He was looking at me like he had just discovered something about himself that he was terrified to admit. Evan, he whispered. Yeah. He swallowed. Can we do another lesson tonight? I smiled weakly. Sure. Ryan didn't smile back. His eyes dropped to my lips. Then he whispered the question that would change everything between us. Can you teach me how to kiss someone? I didn't answer. Because suddenly I knew exactly who he wanted to practice with. And I was terrified that if I said yes, I would never be able to pretend we were only friends again. I spent the entire day pretending Ryan's question hadn't changed everything. It had. Every time my phone buzzed, I expected to see his name. Every time I looked toward the apartment door, I imagined him standing there again. And every few minutes, the same question returned to my mind. Can you teach me how to kiss someone? I had spent years imagining what it would feel like to kiss Ryan. I'd imagined it so many times that the fantasy had become something I hated myself for. Because fantasies were safe. Reality wasn't. By 7 that evening, I was sitting on the couch when Ryan walked in carrying 2 takeout bags. He dropped them onto the coffee table. Peace offering. I looked at him. For what? For making you uncomfortable this morning. You didn't. He gave me a look. You're terrible at lying. I smiled. So are you. That made him laugh. For a moment, everything felt normal again. That was dangerous too. We ate dinner while watching a movie neither of us followed. Ryan kept shifting on the couch. Eventually he paused the movie. Can I ask you something? You've already asked me approximately 80 terrifying questions. This one's worse. I turned toward him. What is it? He stared at the television. Do you think there's a difference between kissing someone because you're curious? He looked at me. And kissing someone because you actually want to? My heart sank. Yes. How do you know which one it is? You usually know. What if you don't? I studied his face. Then you shouldn't do anything until you're sure. Ryan nodded slowly. Then he looked down. I think I'm sure. My pulse jumped. Sure about what? He didn't answer immediately. Instead he turned toward me. I want to know what it feels like. To kiss someone? Yes. Ryan. You said intimacy is about trust. It is. And I trust you. I looked away. That sentence was becoming dangerous. You can trust me without doing this. I know. He paused. But I still want to. Silence filled the room. I could hear the rain tapping lightly against the window. Ryan shifted closer. Not touching. Just close enough that I could feel his warmth. Tell me what to do. I almost laughed. There's no instruction manual. You're supposed to be teaching me. That's not how kissing works. Then show me. My breath caught. I looked at him. He looked nervous. Not playful. Not drunk. Not joking. Just nervous. Ryan, are you sure? He nodded. Yes. You can change your mind. I know. You don't have to prove anything. I know. And afterward things might be weird. His expression softened. They're already weird. That was the moment I realized there was no way back. I slowly leaned toward him. Our faces were inches apart. Ryan's breathing changed. Mine did too. I stopped. He didn't. Instead, he whispered, "Please." So I kissed him. Just once. Softly. Briefly. I pulled away almost immediately. Ryan stayed completely still. His eyes remained closed for a second longer. Then he opened them. He looked almost stunned. That's it. I gave a nervous laugh. What did you expect? I don't know. His gaze dropped to my lips. But I don't think that's enough. My heart slammed against my ribs. Ryan. He moved closer again. Can we do it again? This time I didn't answer. I simply waited. He closed the distance. Our second kiss lasted longer. Ryan was hesitant at first, almost careful. Then something changed. His hand came to rest lightly against my shoulder. I felt his fingers tighten. I pulled back just enough to look at him. His eyes were open. He was staring directly at me. Why does that feel? He stopped. Feel what? Different. I swallowed. Different how? I don't know. He shook his head. Just different. I wanted to tell him everything. That I had imagined this. That I had wanted it for years. That every second of it was terrifying because I already knew what my heart would do if he kept looking at me like that. Instead, I said nothing. Ryan touched my cheek. The gesture was so gentle that it almost hurt. Is this still a lesson? I whispered, I don't know. He smiled slightly. Maybe I don't want it to be. My chest tightened. He kissed me again. This time he was the one who moved first. There was no hesitation. No question. Just a quiet certainty that scared me more than the confusion ever had. When we finally pulled apart, Ryan rested his forehead against mine. Neither of us spoke. Then he laughed quietly. This is a terrible lesson. I smiled. Why? Because now I don't want to stop. The words made my entire body go still. Ryan seemed to realize what he'd said. He immediately looked away. I know what you meant. Do you? I nodded. But I wasn't sure I did. Because something had changed. Ryan wasn't behaving like a straight man trying something once out of curiosity. He was behaving like someone who had discovered a feeling he didn't know existed. And that frightened him. For the rest of the night we stayed close. We talked. We laughed. Sometimes our hands touched. Sometimes neither of us moved away. At one point, Ryan rested his head on my shoulder. You know what scares me? What? He looked at our hands. That I like this too much. I didn't know what to say. So I asked the question I was terrified to ask. Do you regret kissing me? Ryan immediately looked at me. No. His answer came too quickly to doubt. Then he smiled. I regret not doing it sooner. I couldn't breathe. He noticed my expression. Was that too much? No. I smiled. It was exactly enough. Later, Ryan fell asleep on the couch with his head against my shoulder. I stayed awake for a long time. I should have been happy. Instead, I was terrified. Because the rules had changed. Before tonight, I had loved my straight best friend from a distance. Now he'd kissed me. And the worst part wasn't that I wanted more. It was that I had started believing he might want more too. The next morning, I woke up before him. I carefully moved from beneath his head and went to the kitchen. 5 minutes later, I heard footsteps behind me. Ryan walked in, hair messy, still half asleep. He looked at me. Then at the coffee. Then back at me. You didn't leave. I frowned. Why would I? He shrugged. I don't know. I handed him a mug. Good morning. He took it. Our fingers touched. Neither of us pulled away immediately. Then Ryan smiled. A real one. Soft. Almost shy. Good morning. He took a sip. Then, without warning, he leaned over and pressed a quick kiss to my cheek. I froze. Ryan stepped back. What? I touched my cheek. That wasn't part of the lesson. He laughed. I know. And then he walked away as if he hadn't just turned my entire world upside down. I watched him disappear into the hallway. For the first time, I wondered whether I had been asking the wrong question all along. Maybe it wasn't. How do I teach Ryan what intimacy feels like? Maybe the real question was much more dangerous. What happens when the person you're teaching starts teaching you what it feels like to be loved? For the next few days, Ryan acted like nothing had changed. That was almost worse than if he had avoided me. He still stole food from my plate. He still complained about work. He still sent me stupid videos at 2 in the morning. He still called me whenever he was bored. But now there were little things. Things I couldn't stop noticing. His hand would rest on my shoulder when he walked past me. He'd sit too close on the couch. Sometimes when we were talking, I'd catch him staring at me. And whenever I looked back, he'd smile like he'd been caught doing something embarrassing. I tried to convince myself that it meant nothing. That he was simply comfortable with me. That the kisses had been experiments. That the whole thing would eventually pass. Then Ryan started finding reasons to stay. One Friday night he came over after work. He dropped his keys onto my kitchen counter. "You doing anything?" "Not really." "Good." I looked at him. "Why?" He shrugged. "Because I don't want to go home yet." I frowned. "Why?" He leaned against the counter. "Too quiet. You have a perfectly good apartment." "I know." "So?" He smiled. "Yours feels better." That sentence stayed with me long after we'd started watching television. Ryan sat beside me. His knee touched mine. He didn't move. Neither did I. An hour later, his head was resting against my shoulder. I looked down. His eyes were closed. "You falling asleep?" "No. You look asleep." "I can hear you." I smiled. "Then why aren't you moving?" "Because I like this." My chest tightened. I stared at the television. "Ryan." "Yeah. You don't have to keep doing this." He opened his eyes. "Doing what?" "Being like this with me." He sat up. "What does that mean?" "You know what I mean." "No, I don't." I looked at him. "You've been different since that night." He was quiet. Then he asked, "Different in a bad way?" I shook my head. "That's not the problem." "What is?" I looked away. "The problem is that I don't know what this is." Ryan leaned back. "I don't either." "Then maybe we should stop." His expression changed instantly. "Stop what?" "All of it. The kisses. The touching. The late-night conversations. The way he kept looking at me. The way I kept hoping." Ryan stared at me. For once he didn't have an answer. "Why?" I swallowed. "Because it's getting harder for me." "Harder how?" I almost told him. I almost said the words I'd been carrying for years. "'Cause I love you." Instead I said, "Because you're confused." So I can't be the person you figure this out with." He looked hurt. "Why not?" "Because I care about you." "I care about you too." "That's different." "How?" I stood up. "Because you can walk away from this and still be okay." He stood too. "You think I can?" "Yes." "You really think this means nothing to me?" I didn't answer. That was answer enough. Ryan's jaw tightened. Then he walked out. The door closed behind him. I stood there staring at it. For the first time in years, I had chosen myself over him. It felt like losing him anyway. The next 2 days were unbearable. Ryan didn't come over. He barely texted. I told myself that was good. It was exactly what I wanted. So why did I keep checking my phone? On Sunday afternoon, I went to a cafe downtown. I needed air. I needed somewhere that didn't remind me of Ryan. I was halfway through my coffee when a guy from work, Daniel, recognized me. He joined me. We talked. It was easy. Normal. Safe. At least until I glanced through the window. Ryan was standing outside. He'd seen me. And he was staring at Daniel. I went outside. "Ryan." He looked at me. "What are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same thing." "I came for coffee." He nodded. His eyes moved toward Daniel inside. "Who's that?" "A friend." Ryan's expression tightened. "Just a friend?" I stared at him. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing." "You're jealous." His eyes snapped to mine. "I'm not jealous." "You are." "No." "Ryan." I said I'm not. He stepped closer. "Why would I be jealous?" I laughed bitterly. "You tell me." He didn't. Instead he looked away. I folded my arms. "You're the one who wanted to stop pretending." "I never said I wanted to stop." "You didn't have to." He finally looked at me. His voice was quieter now. "I saw you with him. So I didn't like it." My heart stumbled. "Why?" He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. "Exactly," I whispered. I walked past him. He caught my wrist. I stopped. His hand loosened immediately. "Sorry." He looked genuinely frightened by what he'd done. What?" He took a breath. "I don't know why I hated seeing you with him." I looked at him. "Maybe because you're not as indifferent as you think." Ryan released my wrist. "Maybe. That one word changed something. We walked back to the apartment together. Neither of us spoke much. When we got inside, Ryan sat on the couch. I stood near the window. Finally, he said, "I keep thinking about that night." I looked at him. "The kissing?" He nodded. "I thought it would make things clear." "Did it?" "No." He laughed under his breath. "It made everything worse." I smiled sadly. "How?" "Because before, I could pretend I was just curious." He looked directly at me. "Now I know I wanted you." My heart pounded. "Ryan, I don't know what that means about me." "You don't have to know yet. I know what it means about you." I looked down. "What?" "That you're the one person I can't stop thinking about." Silence. He stood. Slowly he crossed the room. When he stopped in front of me, he didn't touch me. He just looked at me. "Tell me to leave." I said nothing. "Evan." Still nothing. His voice cracked. "Please." I finally whispered, "I don't want you to leave." His shoulders relaxed. But I shook my head. "That doesn't mean you get to keep pulling me closer whenever you're confused." "I know. You have to be honest with me." "I will." "You can't kiss me one night and pretend we're normal the next." "I know." "You can't come looking for me when you're lonely and disappear when you're scared." Ryan nodded. "You're right." He took a breath. "Then I won't." He reached for my hand. Slowly. Giving me every chance to pull away. I didn't. His fingers closed around mine. The touch felt different this time. Not like an experiment. Not like a lesson. Like a choice. Ryan looked down at our hands. "I don't know what I'm becoming." I squeezed his fingers. "You don't have to become anything tonight." He looked at me. "But I need to know one thing." "What?" "Do you want me to keep trying?" My heart hurt. Because the honest answer was yes. But I was terrified of what yes would cost me. So I whispered, "Only if you're willing to find out what this is with me." Ryan nodded. "I am." That night we didn't kiss. We didn't need to. We sat together on the couch, hands intertwined, talking until almost 3 in the morning. About fear. About expectations. About loneliness. About the things we'd never told each other. And just before Ryan fell asleep beside me, he whispered, "I think I'm scared." I looked at him. "Of what?" He closed his eyes. "Of finding out that I've been in love with you longer than I realized." I stayed awake for a long time after that. Because I'd spent years dreaming about hearing those words. And now that they were finally beginning to come true, I was discovering something I hadn't expected. Sometimes getting the person you love is just as frightening as losing them. The storm started just after sunset. By 8 o'clock, rain was hammering against the windows so hard that the glass seemed to vibrate. Ryan had planned to go home. He never did. He stood near my window watching lightning split the sky. "You know," he said, "this feels like a bad sign." I smiled. "Because of the storm?" "Because I'm supposed to be making sensible decisions." "You've never been good at that." He laughed. For a few seconds, everything felt easy again. Then his smile disappeared. "Evan?" "Yeah." "Can I ask you something?" I turned toward him. "What?" "Have you ever been afraid of who you are?" The question caught me off guard. I sat down on the couch. Ryan remained by the window. "I think I have," I said. He nodded. "I think I have too." He finally sat beside me. The rain filled the silence between us. "I spent most of my life thinking I knew exactly what I was supposed to be," he said. I listened. "Be confident. Date girls. Never look uncertain. Never let anyone think you don't know what you're doing." He laughed quietly. "I was actually really good at pretending." "Pretending what?" "That nothing scared me." I looked at him. Ryan stared at his hands. "My dad used to tell me that men shouldn't overthink things. That if you wanted something, you went after it." He paused. "But nobody ever taught me what to do when I didn't understand what I wanted." My chest tightened. "You don't have to figure it out tonight." "I know." He looked at me. "But I think I finally understand why everything with you feels different." I didn't answer. He continued. "With everyone else, I always felt like I was trying to be the person they expected." His voice softened. "With you, I don't feel like I'm performing." I looked down. "Ryan. I mean it." He reached for my hand. I let him take it. His thumb brushed slowly across my knuckles. "I can tell you things I can't tell anyone else." "I know." "I can sit beside you for hours without saying anything." "I know." "And when you walk into a room." He stopped. "What?" Ryan smiled nervously. "My whole mood changes." My heart pounded. He turned toward me. I think that's why I keep coming back. I looked into his eyes. You don't have to keep coming back because you're confused. I know. Then why? He leaned closer. Because I want to. The words settled between us. There was no excuse left. No lesson. No curiosity. Just a choice. Ryan lifted his free hand and touched my cheek. I closed my eyes for a second. His touch was gentle. Careful. Almost reverent. You can tell me to stop, he whispered. I opened my eyes. I won't. He smiled. Then he kissed me. Slowly. There was something different about this kiss. The others had felt like questions. This one felt like an answer. I reached for his shoulder. He moved closer. Neither of us hurried. The storm continued outside, but inside, everything became quiet. When we pulled apart, Ryan rested his forehead against mine. I don't want this to be a lesson anymore. Neither do I. He smiled. Good. He kissed me again. I felt the tension I'd carried for years slowly disappear. Not because I had stopped being afraid. Because for the first time I wasn't afraid alone. We stayed close for a long time. Talking between quiet kisses. Laughing nervously. Admitting the things we'd been too scared to say. Ryan told me he had thought about kissing me more times than he wanted to admit. I confessed that I'd imagined it for years. He stared at me. Years? I laughed softly. Don't make me regret telling you. He pulled me into a hug. I don't think I could. Eventually, the conversation became quieter. The storm outside grew heavier. Ryan glanced toward the bedroom. You okay? I nodded. Are you? He took a breath. I'm scared. Me too. He squeezed my hand. But I don't want to run. So we didn't. That night, we chose closeness without needing to prove anything. We stayed together, held each other, and let the walls we'd spent years building finally come down. Nothing about it felt rushed. Nothing felt like an experiment. It felt like trust. It felt like finally admitting what had been there all along. Much later, we were lying beside each other in the darkness. Ryan's fingers traced small, absent circles over the back of my hand. Evan? Are you awake? Yes. He was quiet for a moment. Do you regret tonight? I turned toward him. No. He looked relieved. What about you? He smiled faintly. No. Then he hesitated. Actually, what? I regret something. My heart tightened. What? He looked straight into my eyes. I regret wasting so much time pretending I didn't want to be close to you. I smiled. You're making up for it. He laughed softly. I might. He pulled me closer. I rested my head against his chest. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then Ryan whispered, I don't know what to call this. You don't need to call it anything tonight. He kissed my hair. Okay. His arms tightened around me. But I know I don't want it to end. I closed my eyes. Neither did I. For the first time, I allowed myself to believe that maybe the impossible had become possible. Maybe Ryan wasn't just my best friend anymore. Maybe he was becoming something much more dangerous. Someone I could actually build a life with. Morning came quietly. Sunlight pushed through the curtains. I woke first. For a few seconds I forgot everything. Then I felt an arm around my waist. Ryan was asleep beside me. I turned carefully. His eyes opened. He looked at me. And for one terrible second I was afraid. Afraid that he'd wake up and regret everything. Afraid that the morning would destroy what the night had created. Morning, he whispered. Morning. He didn't move away. Instead he smiled. A small, sleepy smile. Then he reached for my hand. I let him. Do you regret it? I asked. His expression became serious. No. Are you sure? Yes. He squeezed my fingers. The only thing I regret. He paused. Is pretending I didn't want this. My eyes stung. Ryan moved closer. I'm still figuring myself out. I know. I might be scared again. I know. But I'm not going to lie to you. That mattered more than any label. I nodded. Okay. He smiled. Then he kissed my forehead. And for the first time I realized something. The line between us had been crossed. But neither of us wanted to go back. For the next few weeks, Ryan and I lived in a strange space between friendship and something neither of us had learned how to name. We didn't announce anything. We didn't sit down and decide what we were. We simply kept choosing each other. Every morning Ryan found a reason to come over. Sometimes it was coffee. Sometimes breakfast. Sometimes he claimed he had forgotten something at my apartment even when we both knew he hadn't. And sometimes he didn't have an excuse at all. He would simply knock on my door, walk in and smile. Miss me? I would pretend to think about it. Not really. He'd laugh. Liar. Then he'd pull me into a hug. Those hugs became my favorite part of the day. There was something about the way Ryan held me now. Before, his hugs had been quick and careless, the kind of hug best friends gave each other without thinking. Now he lingered. His hand would stay against my back. His chin would rest briefly against my shoulder. Sometimes when we separated, he'd look at me for a second too long. And every time, my heart would remind me that this wasn't a dream anymore. It was real. Terrifyingly real. One Saturday morning we were making breakfast together. Ryan stood behind me while I tried to flip pancakes. You're doing that wrong. I've made pancakes before. Not correctly. Then you make them. He reached around me. His chest brushed lightly against my back. I froze. Ryan noticed. He smiled. You okay? Yeah. Why are you standing like someone pressed pause? I laughed. Because you're distracting me. Good. He gently took the spatula from my hand. For a moment we stood like that. His arms around me. My hands over his. The kitchen quiet except for the sound of the pan. Then he whispered. You know you can get used to this. I turned my head. Used to what? Me. I smiled. I already am. Ryan's expression softened. Then he kissed my cheek. It was such a small gesture. But somehow it felt bigger than everything we'd done before. Because there was no confusion in it. No question. It was simply affection. A choice. A habit. Something becoming normal. And somehow normal was more romantic than anything I'd imagined. But happiness didn't make Ryan's fear disappear. Sometimes I still caught him staring at his phone after receiving messages from old friends. Sometimes he'd go quiet when conversations turned toward relationships. Sometimes he'd ask me questions that had no easy answers. Do you think people have to label themselves? Not immediately. What if I don't know what I am? You don't have to decide today. What if people judge me? They might. He sighed. That's comforting. I laughed. Then I took his hand. What matters is what you know about us. He looked at our fingers. I know I don't want to lose you. That was enough. Until one afternoon it wasn't. We were at a small cafe near downtown when one of Ryan's old friends, Marcus, walked over. Marcus had known Ryan since college. He looked at the two of us, then at our hands. His expression changed. Well? Ryan immediately pulled his hand away. The movement was so quick that it hurt. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Didn't know you two were that close. Ryan forced a laugh. We're just hanging out. Just. The word hit me harder than it should have. Marcus smirked. Sure. I stood up. I'll get another coffee. I walked toward the counter before either of them could see my expression. I told myself not to care. Ryan was still figuring things out. He was scared. He didn't owe anyone an explanation. But when I returned, Marcus was still there. He looked at me. So how long has this been going on? Ryan's jaw tightened. Drop it. Marcus laughed. I'm just asking. You're not. Marcus looked between us. You've always said you weren't into guys. The entire cafe seemed to disappear. Ryan went silent. I couldn't breathe. Marcus continued. Don't tell me Evan changed your mind. I looked at Ryan. I waited. For anything. A defense. A word. Something. But Ryan didn't answer immediately. That tiny hesitation broke something inside me. I put my coffee down. I'm going home. Ryan looked at me. Evan? It's fine. No. I shook my head. You don't have to explain yourself to him. I looked directly at Marcus. But I can't keep standing beside someone who acts like I'm a secret. Then I walked away. Ryan didn't follow me immediately. That hurt even more. I spent the next 2 hours packing. Not because I wanted to leave. Because I didn't know how to stay. I folded my clothes into a bag. Packed my laptop. Grabbed the few things I'd left at Ryan's place over the last few weeks. I kept telling myself that this was necessary. That love wasn't supposed to make you feel ashamed. That I deserved someone who could stand beside me without hesitation. The front door opened. Ryan walked in. He stopped when he saw the bag. What's that? I didn't look at him. I think I need some space. His face fell. No. I continued packing. Evan. Ryan, I'm tired. I know. No, you don't. He walked closer. I should have said something. You should have. I was surprised. That doesn't make it okay. I know. I finally looked at him. Do you? He nodded. His eyes were full of regret. I do now. Silence. Ryan stepped closer. I was scared. I know. I heard him say it and suddenly I remembered every stupid thing I've been taught about who I was supposed to be. My eyes softened despite myself. But for those few seconds. He looked down. I let that fear become more important than you. I swallowed. That hurt. I know. He took a breath. I've spent my whole life trying to make sure nobody sees the parts of me I don't understand. He looked at me. But you're not something I need to hide. I couldn't speak. Ryan moved closer. I should have said that in front of him. Yes. I should have held your hand. Yes. I should have told him that you're the person I. He stopped. My heart pounded. The person you what? Ryan looked directly into my eyes. The person I love. Everything inside me went still. He said it quietly. Not dramatically. Not perfectly. But honestly. I whispered, say it again. His eyes filled with emotion. I love you, Evan. My throat tightened. I don't know exactly what label belongs to me. He shook his head. And maybe I won't know for a while. He took my hand. But I know who I want beside me. I stared at our fingers. Are you sure? Yes. Even when you're scared? Yes. Even when people talk? Yes. His hand tightened around mine. Because losing you scares me more. I closed my eyes. A tear slipped down my cheek. Ryan gently wiped it away. I don't want you to leave. I looked at him. Then don't give me a reason to. I won't. He pulled me into his arms. I hugged him back. For a long time neither of us spoke. Eventually Ryan whispered against my hair. I think this is the first time I've ever chosen something because I wanted it. He pulled back enough to look at me. Not because I thought I was supposed to. I smiled through my tears. And? He smiled. And I want you. I laughed softly. You're getting very confident. I've been taking lessons. I rolled my eyes. From who? He leaned closer. My favorite teacher. I laughed. Then he kissed my forehead. And somehow, after all the fear and confusion, the world felt quiet again. That night there were no labels. No explanations. No rules. Just Ryan and me sitting on the floor beside the couch, sharing takeout and talking until midnight. At one point he rested his head on my shoulder. You know what I realized? What? This stopped being about learning a long time ago. I looked at him. When? He smiled. The moment I started missing you when you weren't in the room. My heart softened. He took my hand. And I don't think I'm ever going to stop wanting you close. I squeezed his fingers. Good. Ryan smiled. Good. And for the first time I wasn't wondering whether he would stay. I knew he would. Not because he was no longer afraid. But because he had finally decided that I was worth being brave for. After that night something inside Ryan changed. Not suddenly. Not perfectly. But enough that I noticed. He stopped apologizing for caring about me. He stopped pulling his hand away whenever someone looked. He stopped acting as though every affectionate moment between us needed an explanation. He was still figuring himself out. I could see that. There were moments when uncertainty returned. Questions he couldn't answer. Fears he hadn't completely overcome. But now, when those fears appeared, he talked to me instead of running from me. And that changed everything. One morning, I woke up to a message from him. Come outside. I frowned. It was barely 7. I pulled on a hoodie and stepped outside. Ryan was standing beside his car with 2 cups of coffee. You're insane. Good morning to you too. What are you doing here this early? He held out one of the cups. I wanted to see you. I smiled. You couldn't wait until 8? No. He looked almost embarrassed. I missed you. My heart warmed. It's been 9 hours. I know. That's ridiculous. Probably. He smiled. I took the coffee. Then he reached for my hand. There was no hesitation. No checking who was watching. No nervous glance around. Just his fingers sliding between mine. We stood there in the early morning light. You're getting comfortable, I said. Ryan smiled. I told you. Told me what? That I'd get used to you. I squeezed his hand. You're already too used to me. I don't think that's possible. We walked to the car together. On the way, Ryan was unusually quiet. What are you thinking? He looked ahead. I was remembering the first night. The lesson? Yeah. He laughed. I was so sure I could understand everything if you just explained it to me. And now? He looked at me. Now I think I was asking the wrong question. What was the right one? He stopped walking. Who makes me feel like I can be myself? I smiled. And? You. That one word meant more than any confession. We spent the afternoon together. Nothing dramatic happened. And maybe that was what made it special. We went grocery shopping. Argued over what to cook. Drove around with the windows down. Stopped for ice cream. Ryan stole half of mine. You have your own. Yours tastes better. You say that every time. Because it's true. We sat in the car afterward, parked beneath a row of trees. Ryan looked over at me. Can I ask you something? Sure. Are you happy? The question caught me off guard. Yes. Really? I nodded. I am. He smiled. Good. Why? Because sometimes I worry that I changed your life before I was ready to take responsibility for it. I looked at him. You didn't ruin anything. But I hurt you. Yes. His expression fell. But you fixed it. He looked relieved. I want to keep fixing it. You don't have to be perfect. I know. He smiled. But I want to be good to you. I reached across the console and took his hand. You already are. He squeezed it. Then his eyes moved toward me. He hesitated for half a second. Can I kiss you? I smiled. You've gotten polite. I'm learning. I leaned closer. Our kiss was soft and familiar. Not the nervous kiss from the beginning. Not something neither of us understood. It was simply ours. When we pulled away, Ryan smiled. I like that. You've said that before. I mean, I really like it. I laughed. He rested his forehead against mine. I still don't know what I am. You don't need to. But I know what I feel. I nodded. What do you feel? He smiled. Home. My chest tightened. You can't say things like that without warning. Why? Because then I'll fall harder. He looked at me. Good. I laughed. You're impossible. I know. We sat there quietly for a while. Then Ryan said, there's something else I need to tell you. I waited. I talked to my mom. That surprised me. About us? He nodded. How did it go? She asked if I was happy. What did you say? I said yes. I smiled. What did she say? Ryan looked down. She said then I shouldn't waste time being afraid. I looked at him. She sounds smart. She is. He smiled. She also said I should stop worrying about finding the perfect word and start paying attention to the person standing in front of me. My throat tightened. What did you tell her about me? Ryan looked straight into my eyes. I told her you're the most important person in my life. I didn't know what to say, so I simply leaned over and hugged him. He wrapped his arms around me. For several quiet seconds we stayed like that. Then he whispered, I don't want to hide anymore. You don't have to. He pulled back. Not from you. Never from me. He kissed my forehead. That evening we went back to the apartment. Ryan made dinner. Badly. I laughed at him the entire time. You're destroying the kitchen. I am creating something. You're creating smoke. He looked at the pan. Oh. I laughed so hard that I had to sit down. Ryan came over and stood in front of me. You're enjoying this. A lot. He smiled. Then he leaned down and kissed me. One quick kiss. Then another. I smiled. What? Nothing. You're staring. So are you. He laughed. Then he pulled me into his arms. We stayed there in the kitchen until the food was forgotten. There was something almost ordinary about it. And somehow ordinary felt incredible. Because I'd spent so long imagining impossible moments with Ryan that I hadn't realized what I actually wanted. I didn't want one perfect night. I wanted mornings. Arguments over coffee. Shared dinners. His shoes beside mine. His jacket hanging on my chair. His voice calling my name from another room. I wanted a life. Not a secret. Not an experiment. Not a temporary chapter. A life. Later that night we sat on the balcony. The city lights flickered below us. Ryan rested his head against my shoulder. You know what I think? What? You taught me how to stop being afraid of affection. I smiled. And what did you teach me? He looked up. To stop waiting for someone to choose me. My smile faded. He took my hand. You chose me. I always would. I know. He kissed my knuckles. And now I'm choosing you back. I looked at him. There was no fear in his expression. At least not tonight. Only certainty. Not certainty about labels. Not certainty about how the world would react. Just certainty about us. That was enough. Ryan leaned closer. I think I finally figured out why I couldn't make my other relationships work. Why? Because I was always trying to become what someone else wanted. He smiled. With you, I don't have to become anything. I rested my head against his. You can just be Ryan. He laughed. That's probably the first time anyone has told me that and made it sound romantic. It wasn't supposed to be romantic. Too late. I smiled. He kissed me gently. Then we sat together beneath the night sky, hands intertwined. For once there was no lesson. No confusion. No pretending. Just two people who had finally stopped running from the truth. And the truth was simple. Ryan wasn't the straight best friend who had accidentally crossed the line with me anymore. He was the man who had chosen to stay. The man who reached for my hand without thinking. The man who no longer needed permission to love me. And somewhere between the first question and this quiet night, I realized something else. The person I had spent years secretly loving had finally become the person I could openly call mine. But neither of us knew yet that the hardest part of our story was still waiting for us. Because loving each other privately was one thing. Learning how to live that love in the real world was something else entirely. 6 months later, I still sometimes woke up expecting everything to have been a dream. The apartment was quieter in the mornings. Sunlight slipped through the curtains. 2 coffee mugs sat on the kitchen counter. Ryan's jacket was usually hanging over the back of a chair. His shoes were always beside the door, even though I'd asked him 100 times to put them somewhere else. And somehow, those ordinary little things had become my favorite parts of life. Ryan had changed. Not into someone completely different. Into someone more honest. He still made terrible coffee. He still stole food from my plate. He still left his socks in places they absolutely shouldn't be. But he no longer looked frightened when he reached for my hand. He no longer pretended our relationship was something that needed to be explained away. And he had stopped worrying about finding the perfect label. One Sunday evening, I was sitting on the balcony when he came outside. He held 2 cups of tea. "Your coffee addiction is getting out of control," he said. "You're the one who brings it to me." "I know." He sat beside me. Our shoulders touched. Then he slipped his hand into mine. The sunset painted the buildings orange. For a few minutes we simply sat there. "You've been quiet," Ryan said. "Thinking." "Dangerous." I laughed. "About us." He looked at me. "Good thoughts. The best ones." He leaned closer. "Tell me." I looked down at our hands. "I was thinking about the first night you came to my room." Ryan laughed. "Oh God. You remember?" "I don't think I'll ever forget." I smiled. "You were shaking." "I was terrified. You asked me to teach you." "I was an idiot." "No." He looked at me. "I was confused." "You still were." He nodded. "Yeah." Then he smiled. "But I wasn't confused about you for very long." I looked at him. "How long?" He thought for a moment. "Maybe the first time you held my hand." My heart skipped. "You never told me that." I was scared. Of me. Of what it meant. He squeezed my hand. I'd spent so long thinking I knew exactly who I was. He stared out at the sunset. "Then one night I was holding your hand, and it felt more natural than anything I'd ever done." I smiled. "I remember." "Of course you do. You wouldn't let go." "Because I didn't want to." I leaned against his shoulder. "Do you ever think about how strange all of this is?" "Every day." "Regret it?" Ryan turned toward me. "Never." He kissed my forehead. Then he smiled. "You know, I have something for you." "What?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small folded piece of paper. I opened it. There was handwriting inside. I recognized it immediately. "What is this?" "A list." I laughed. "You made a list?" "Don't judge me." I read the first line. "Things Evan taught me." I looked up. "Ryan." "Keep reading." I smiled and continued. Lesson 1. Trust the person who makes you feel safe. Lesson 2. Don't confuse fear with certainty. Lesson 3. Affection isn't weakness. Lesson 4. You don't have to understand everything immediately. Lesson 5. Being honest with yourself is harder than being honest with anyone else. And at the bottom there was one final line. Lesson 6. Sometimes the person you're afraid to love is the person you've been looking for all along. My eyes burned. "You're ridiculous." "I know." I folded the paper carefully. "I hate how sentimental you've become." "You love it." "I do." He smiled. Then he leaned closer. "There's one more thing." "What?" "The last lesson." I raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" He whispered. "You don't teach it." "Then what do you do?" "You live it." He kissed me. Softly. Familiar. Like coming home. When he pulled away, I rested my forehead against his. "I love you." His smile appeared immediately. "I love you too." There was no hesitation anymore. No fear. No question. Just truth. Later that night we went out for dinner. Ryan held my hand as we walked down the street. A few people looked. We kept walking. He squeezed my fingers. You okay? I smiled. Yeah. You? He looked at me. Better than okay. We stopped outside the restaurant. Ryan turned toward me. Evan? Oh. Thank you. For what? For not giving up on me. I shook my head. You were worth the trouble. He laughed. That's romantic. It wasn't supposed to be. Too late. We walked inside together. And as I watched him smile across the table that night, I thought about the boy who had once stood in my doorway afraid to admit he didn't understand his own heart. He had asked me to teach him. I thought I was teaching him about closeness, about trust, about affection, about what it meant to let another person see you completely. But somewhere along the way, Ryan had taught me something too. He taught me that love wasn't always loud. Sometimes it looked like coffee in the morning, a hand finding yours underneath a table, a jacket left on the wrong chair, someone waiting outside because they missed you, a kiss on the forehead before bed, someone learning how to say, I need you, without feeling ashamed. And sometimes love was simply someone choosing you again and again. Months passed. Then years began to follow. Our apartment changed. Our routines changed. Life became busier. There were difficult days. Arguments. Moments when Ryan doubted himself. Moments when I wondered whether my fears would return. But we always came back to the same thing. Each other. One night, long after midnight, I woke up and found Ryan standing by the window. What are you doing? He turned. Couldn't sleep. I sat up. Come here. He smiled. He crossed the room and climbed into bed beside me. I wrapped my arms around him. He rested his head against my chest. Remember when I first asked you to teach me? I laughed. Unfortunately. You thought I was crazy. I still do. He smiled. I had no idea what was going to happen. Neither did I. He was quiet for a moment. Then he whispered. Best mistake I ever made. I kissed his forehead. You know something? What? You never actually stopped. He looked up at me. Stopped what? Learning. He smiled. Neither did you. We laughed softly. Then he pulled me closer. Outside, the city continued moving. Cars passed. Lights flickered. People hurried through their own lives without knowing ours existed. But inside that room, everything felt still. Safe. Complete. I thought about the first night again. The fear in Ryan's eyes. The question. The first touch. The first kiss. The storm. The argument. The confession. Everything that had brought us here. I had once believed loving Ryan meant waiting for something that could never happen. I thought being his best friend was the closest I would ever get. I was wrong. Because sometimes life doesn't give you the love you imagined. Sometimes it gives you something better. Something unexpected. Something messy. Something that makes you question everything you thought you knew. And sometimes, the person who asks you how to find love is already holding the answer in their hands. Ryan shifted closer. Are you smiling? Yeah. Why? I kissed his forehead. Because I remembered something. What? The first time you asked me for a lesson. He laughed sleepily. And what did you teach me? I looked at him. That love isn't about teaching someone how to feel. He waited. It's about giving them a safe enough place to finally feel. His eyes softened. I think you were that place for me. I held him tighter. And you became home for me. He kissed me once. Then he closed his eyes. I listened to his breathing slowly settle. And as I watched the man I'd once thought I could never have sleep peacefully beside me, I understood the final lesson. I hadn't taught Ryan how to love. We had learned it together. One touch at a time. One honest conversation at a time. One frightened step at a time. Until there was nothing left to teach. Only a life left to live. Together. And that was the part of our story I wanted most. Not the first kiss. Not the confusion. Not the moment everything changed. The forever afterward. Because Ryan had once walked into my room and asked me to teach him something he thought he didn't understand. Instead, he gave me the one thing I'd secretly wanted for years. A reason to stop hiding my heart. And this time, when morning came, neither of us was afraid of what it would bring. Because Ryan was still beside me. His hand was still holding mine. And for the first time in my life, forever didn't feel impossible. It felt like home.